Good. For today, and I'm so happy to see you all here. Today's speaker is going to be Kathy Vance, as our new minister, Katie McQuigg Lucas, is not in the pulpit until late August. Okay. And we're going to begin with our opening songs, and we actually have to use our hymnals, song number 138, because we don't have any slides. The song is "These Things Shall Be," and it's verses 1 through 4. Just pretend to say the words. Today, Darcy Truhan will light the chalice. May the light from this flame be a beacon of our faith in the days that grow dark and dreary. May the light from this flame be warmth to our spirits during nights of restless searching. May the light from this flame be a celebration of truth, meaning, and joy we find within these walls and in our dreams. Covenant is the silk that joins Unitarian Universalist congregations, communities, and individuals together in a web of interconnection. The practice of promising to walk together is the precious core of our creedless faith. Please join me in saying our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, thus do we covenant with one another. Today's reading is from Mistakes and Miracles, Congregations on the Road to Multiculturalism by former UUA President Susan Frederick Gray. What a time this is, a time when we are all being called into deeper practice of our theology, living into the call at the heart of Unitarian Universalism for beloved community. A community that practices a radically inclusive and compassionate, anti-racist, multicultural faith within, and acts powerfully in partnership and solidarity for justice and liberation beyond. The work to create such beloved community takes deepest roots within our congregations, where we live into the fullness of the calling. When a diverse group of people hang in there together, mindfully and humbly, trying to embody their faith in all they say and do, while learning how to be in right relationship with each other, miracles of transformation take place both in the congregation's individual members and in the institution itself. Congregations are living, breathing human organisms. They are messy, constantly in flux, and prone to make mistakes. Yet they can also be sources of inspiration, comfort, action, and joy. They can where some of the most important and enduring changes happen. We are covenantal faith, where we call each other into the work. On one hand, when congregations fail to live up to this covenant, they can harm the people who have trusted them. Too often, those harmed come from traditionally marginalized groups who feel barred from the center of our congregational life. On the other hand, when we live up to our covenant, then we revitalize the whole project of congregational life. Our congregational stories can serve as inspiration points, as launching pads for both brick and mortar congregations and new 21st century forms of community building. That ends our reading for today. And we get to have Charlotte Hardin as a soloist singing "There Is More Love Somewhere."
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? Is this no? Okay. I have a. Do you think that the lapel is too? Now? Better? Okay. My name is Gloria Miller. I'm the acting director of religious education, and I have a story for all ages today called The Invisible Boy. And I'm asking those young and young at heart to come and join me and read with me up here. Yeah, come on, Anthony. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Can you see him? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in the classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much. And Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. They take up a lot of space, and Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball team. The best players get picked first. Then the best friends of the best players. Then the friends of the best friends. And only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. But he doesn't look sad, does he? Because he's hoping that they'll pick him. JT glances in Brian's direction, and just as quickly he looks away. Oh, we've got enough players for each team. Let's play ball. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, said JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, said Madison. Everybody did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They hadn't quite made up their minds yet. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought your lunch looked good. Brian. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground, and he starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Said Justin. Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin, Emilio calls from the other side of the court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, said Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asked the kids to team up in 2s or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off, and Brian heads towards Justin. Oh, I'm already with Justin, said Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there and swallow him up. Mrs. Carlotti, Justin said we can have up to 3 people in our group, and we only have 2. Come on, Emilio, let Brian work with us. Okay, I guess. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in this photograph. Use your imagination. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian can draw them to go with our story, said Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. You see how they're all working together now? And Brian's being noticed because he's such a good drawer. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Anthony, why do you think he doesn't like lunch time? Does he have a lot of friends that want to sit with him? No. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian, he hears someone shout. Hey, Brian, over here. He turns and he sees Justin waving him over, and Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Cookie? Thanks. Maybe, just maybe, Brian is not so invisible after all. Neat story, huh? You can stay up here if you want.
Today's keeper of the flame is Anthony. We pass this flame of religious freedom from generation to generation.
Okay, can you hear me all right? Okay, all right. Well, thank you all, whether you're joining us online or whether you're here, thank you so much for joining us today. My reading is from the Sufi poet Jalaluddin Rumi, and I'm going to read it twice because it's short. So, out of myself, but wanting to go beyond that, wanting what I see in your eyes, not power, but to kiss the ground with the dawn breeze for company, wearing white pilgrim cloth. I have a certain knowing, but now I want sight. So here it is again. Out of myself, but wanting to go beyond that, wanting what I see in your eyes, not power, but to kiss the ground with the dawn breeze for company, wearing white pilgrim cloth. I have a certain knowing, but now I want sight. Okay. Well, the title of my talk is, Are We the Ones We Have Been Waiting For? And a couple of months ago, we had the chance to hear our new minister, Katie, speak about the power of uncertainty, of acknowledging how hard it is to live without knowing exactly what the future holds. And so I was wondering, have you heard the term liminal space? Yes. And it refers to places and life situations that are like thresholds, suspended between worlds. So you can think of an empty, echoing stairwell with doors above and below, or a stretch of a downtown street silent at 2 a.m. Think of someone maybe who has packed up all their possessions and is driving to their new job in a new town. Or think of someone who has decided to take their first steps in a gender transition. So liminal spaces, they're full of discomfort, but they're also very full of excitement and possibility. So we now as a congregation are in our own liminal space, having just finished this 2-year interim period with Jay and preparing for a new era with our new minister. It's very exciting. Liminal spaces can be extremely spiritual, offering as they do opportunity for vision and intention, despite the uncertainty and despite the fear that we sometimes feel. Well, in the sermon that Katie preached, she offered reassurance that we are not alone in whatever lies ahead and whatever we're facing. There is such power in our community and in a group acting in concert. And so if we can feel our strength and if we stay united and love and care for each other, we really can accomplish whatever it is that we set our mind to. And so the question is, what do we want that to be? What do we want that to be going forward? And so for an answer, I would like to ask us to refer back to our stated mission, which is to change lives and heal the world. And then our vision, which is to be the most vibrant center of liberal religion at work in the world. Well, when I was first attending Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church and I heard those words as a newcomer, I was really, really amazed to heal the world, the most vibrant center in the world. What kind of a congregation, I thought, one with under 200 people would take on a job like that? And yet, I arrived here in my own new in town, just divorced, what the hell is going to happen to me, liminal space. And I found such healing and welcoming from this community. And so I know firsthand that these are not idle words, this heal the world, most vibrant community center of liberal religion in the world. And so if these are not idle words, I wonder how in the days to come we will give even greater shape and action to our stated call to change lives and heal the world. So as you know, Unitarian Universalism itself is in a great period of reassessment. Our membership rolls nationally are stagnant. In his white paper, Congregations and Beyond, our former president, Peter Morales, noted that for every adult who is a member of a UU congregation, there are 3 who identify as UU but just don't belong or attend. And we raise our children in the RE program, but a lot of times they don't continue in membership. We have done a pretty good job also of placing women in positions of leadership and have many members who identify as LGBTQ, but there are still a lot of Black and brown people who like our ideas, but don't find us all that welcoming. So we must continue, as Peter Morales says, to lower the walls between our congregations and the larger world. So one of the great things about the UU system of governance or polity is that while we share our 7 principles with other churches, we are really empowered to act as individual congregations. That is, we don't have to take our marching orders from the top, from UUA. It's in our hands, our congregational hands, how we want to show up in the world. And so we here now at BAUUC get to decide whether we want to stay exactly as we are, which is committed to Unitarian Universalism and to each other, to this congregation. We're full of kindness and always ready to accept those who find us and want to become part of our family. So if I were to draw a picture, I would draw us as a circle with a door. And there's no lock on that door. We can go out that door and in the world, and we offer money and we offer support and advocacy and care. but then we come back home. We come back inside. And other times, that door swings open whenever somebody's knocking. And of course, we always open it wider to let them come in. But we have a lot of older white people in this congregation, located in a city that's 48% Hispanic, almost 20% Black, and where the median age is 35. So when a young person or a person of color comes knocking, we need to be asking ourselves maybe, do they see in us pieces of themselves when they come inside? Do they see something that heals them and excites them and makes them want to return? So we know we want to be inclusive, but being inclusive is a little bit different from creating beloved community. So what does that mean, beloved community? I would like to challenge us to think about that and whether or not we actually want to actualize it. So inclusion means saying that, yes, you too are welcome here, but this is how we do things. So come on in, and if you want to do things our way, you are more than welcome. So in the past, American society has done that. They have said to people with tribal backgrounds, for instance, they say, well, you can come into our white American society, but you need to abandon your culture, your religion, your traditional clothing, and put on Western clothes and dresses and pants and adopt Christianity in order to be part of the American way of life. So it's possible to be inclusive without ensuring that people feel really seen in the reality of who they know themselves to be. So community, on the other hand, involves embracing others as they are, and maybe even changing our approaches a little bit so that they feel seen and heard and more loved. So as we stand in our liminal space now, in this period of time between ministers ready to walk into our future, what do we want that future to look like? What do we want to see around us? And what is our vision for beloved community? What extent do we want to mindfully, creatively change to enable the presence of a greater whole? A greater whole, and to what extent do we just feel like we want to stay the same? So we get to decide. Well, one of the things that we have been knowing for some time now about Unitarian Universalism as a national movement is that we do have alternatives to operating like an intellectual discussion group or a traditional New England service. I mean, that's our history, that's our background. And we have prioritized the life of the mind a lot of times. And our acceptance of different points of view is one of our greatest strengths. So we're working on it, but we have a lot further to go in our national movement to decentralize white culture as the default for our worship, for our comfort zone. There are a couple of indigenous theologians, Linda Tuiwai Smith and also Gloria Anzaldúa, who's a Mexican-American from the Rio Grande Valley. They both talk about the spirituality of feeling, of knowledge of the body that's been often minimized by Western organizations in terms of its spiritual value. It's still mainstream Christian formats, European philosophy, Western academic and scientific perspectives that are often seen as the higher form of knowledge in our churches. So we may incorporate Native American prayer. We may have a Cinco de Mayo event or songs that honor Black history, and these are all really good outreaches. And our words of welcome, our desire to have a community that encompasses race and ethnicity more fully, sexual orientation, age differences, younger people, all of that, that's real. But a picture of the room doesn't always reflect the hopes of our heart. So, in order to attract a more diverse and a more youthful congregation, if that's something that we want to do going forward, we'll want to start building it with conviction. Like a house that a family knows it's going to live in, it knows it's going to live in one day, and so you just build it and knowing that we're going to go there. It's going to take some envisioning. It's going to take a willingness to reconfigure a little bit, to add on and realign, and to work side by side, believing that if we do build it, they will come. It's not something we could do by dragging people in or by creating some idealistic demographic chart. But isn't it oppressive in a way if we fail to act and just stay the same? So we have to be willing to see how Unitarian Universalism, as currently structured, is often a reflection of our highly educated, intellectual white forebears. We say we're open to change, we value our history, our processes, and our style, so we may find ourselves just dabbling a little bit in other cultural expressions or other ways of thinking, other feelings, and then pull back to the familiar. Like folks everywhere, if voices are demanding that changes be made, then we may resist the pressure and the stress of that. But as the cerebral, mostly white educated congregation that we are, we need to understand that calls for change from marginalized people come because we're holding a line while we study and discuss, we worry, we procrastinate, and to them, it may look like we're holding a color line. It may look like a cultural need to do things in ways that are familiar to white bodies. But change can happen, and it can happen in a moment, holding in our minds the vision of what we want to become. So that does involve uncertainty. It involves living in that liminal space as the work unfolds. It involves bravery and being willing to live for a while in a place of discomfort as old systems are remolded into forms that appeal to the hearts and mind as well as to the intellect, that bring in those who want to be here but need to see themselves reflected more. So I read about a UU church in Camp Springs, Maryland. In the year 2000, they were 95% white, but they lived in a neighborhood near Washington, D.C. that was primarily black. And so they just decided that they wanted to be more representative of the world that they lived in. And they decided to live into their mission. And within 3 years, they had totally reconfigured their congregation's demographic so that 4 out of 10 of their congregants were people of color. And so it can be done, and it can be done relatively quickly. So compare that to the story of the 1969 GA gathering in Boston, Massachusetts. The Unitarian Universalists were always known and admired for their support of the civil rights movement, and they were among the first to act on behalf of Black empowerment. But the quest for Black empowerment and presence in the UUA had turned into a battle over funding. And the members of one advocacy group took over the GA microphones, and they didn't allow delegates to speak. And that resulted in a walkout of most of the Black UUs that were present that day, as well as a lot of their white allies. So what had gone wrong? I mean, with everybody in Unitarian Universalism so supportive of these changes and so loving of everyone, how had this happened? Well, what had gone wrong was that the white failure to understand and to viscerally feel the pain and the rejection that Black folks were trying to overcome. And this wasn't an issue that was going to be solved by managing money or by words, by study groups, or by allowing Black voices some space. This was going to need to be a joint venture. Liberation needed to happen, but not by some abstract intellectual process or by white people graciously allowing Black people to come in. In spiritual liberation, the ruling class, which is us, and the oppressed free each other. They free each other, and that is heart work. That is emotional work. And UUs are often very businesslike and pragmatic and head-centered. So in addition to being the first to act on behalf of Black empowerment back in that time, UUs also had turned their backs on Black empowerment. And it has continued to be problematic to this day and is addressed in places like the agendas of DRUM, which is the Diverse Religious UU Ministry. So here in the Houston area, this is not just an issue of black and white. Far from it, because where we live, we must invite the presence of our Hispanic neighbors and of younger people. And with Principle 8 and Article 2 now on the table in our congregations, we have a chance to begin anew and to have action align with our stated principle, purpose of being the most vibrant center of liberal religion at work in the world. So the 8th principle, which we haven't yet addressed, it states in part that we'll be working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Well, this is not perfect wording, and I know there are people who object to being told that this is something that we're supposed to do because we value our independence and we don't take our marching orders from the UUA. And so this process has had a political tone. But above all, we're involved in the most human of endeavors. We're being asked to undo centuries of separation and pain and to stop rationalizing why there might be some other better thing to do, to dismantle racism and other oppressions within ourselves. Love and kindness benefit all and begins a return of the world to its natural order. So there are now over 250 congregations nationwide that have decided to adopt this 8th principles, and many of them are here in Texas. So enacting change is extremely hard because, in part, it involves a change in our identity and involves a willingness to give up old ways of doing things. So there's a book by Peter Steinke, and he writes about the 21st century church as an emotional system. And he shows how resistance to a problem as coming from within ourselves and our attachment to what's familiar, it can cause churches to stay stuck and to not accomplish the things that they so desperately want to. Things that would so clearly be a manifestation of the vision and the values that we keep talking about. So we have to ask ourselves, at what point will we start to take more action and maybe not just talk about things? So we may have fear, we may have satisfaction with the status quo, all that may be present, but maybe, as our new minister said in her sermon from this pulpit, maybe we can hold our anxiety anew. We can use it to upend and to build a change, to build anew. Some people may be asking, well, why should we try to fix something that ain't broke? Why are we want to build anew when we're such a good church? We're such good people right now. We're already social justice oriented. What reason would we want to do something different? Well, maybe just because the hour from 11 to noon on Sunday morning is still the most segregated hour in American life. And we just don't want to be reflecting that anymore. Maybe it's because we're starting to get out of our heads and to start to realize what it feels like for others who have UU views and leanings, but aren't able viscerally to relate to the service, to feel comfortable in the room. Well, the document called the Cambridge Platform dates back to 1648, and was the start of a movement that today is known as Unitarian Universalism, and it states that there is no greater church than a congregation. And so we don't have to wait for some larger forces, larger wheels to turn. We have the power to do good in the world. And we don't have to wait for society to change. We don't have to wait for the UUA to tell us what to do. We don't have to wait. We only have to open our door to accomplish the good deeds. We don't have to just accomplish good deeds of the day and then come back inside our circle. We can make it a real and permanent difference if we will begin. And so we can draw a larger circle that takes in so much more than it does right now. And in doing so, we can liberate others, but we can liberate ourselves as well. So here again, these words from Susan Frederick Gray. The work to create beloved community takes deepest root within the congregations, and that is where we live into the fullness of the calling. And again, these provocative words from the poet Rumi. I have a certain knowing, now I won't cite. So these things we have always known in our heads, these things we have always understood, but now is the time to start making beloved community more real than ever before our eyes, And so if liberation and not separation is what we want, we can move more from discussion into action. We can step through our liminal spaces with joy, with adventure, with love for those who are waiting to be received. And we are the ones that we have been waiting for. And this, I believe. Thank you. Amen. So let us pray now and reflect with these words from UU Minister Andrea Hawkins Kemper. Spirit of life, may we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now, to be the barrier and the bridge, to be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building the beloved community, and to be a people of intention and a people of conscience. Amen. I invite us now to come forward to light candles of care and concern, and if you would like to stay where you are and have a candle brought to you, just raise your hand. Okay.
purpose of church is to encourage all who gather there to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. That was beautiful, Carla. Please join me in saying, "This gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world." And now we have some announcements. After today's service, please join us in Cockrell Hall for a coffee and fellowship. Everyone is invited to visit over beverage and snacks. And we have something special. Carol Phillips has made a cake in honor of Laura Dean's birthday. And please, Bought? Oh, okay. Sorry. Provided. Please come and enjoy it. And finally, if you're not on our email list, you can sign us up on our website at BAUUC.org. We send out an email of weekly briefs every Tuesday that contain many activities that are happening in our church. In fact, there's so many activities going on, it's best to just check your order of service and the Tuesday weekly briefs to see what's happening. And now, Charlotte will lead us in our closing song, "We Shall Be Known."
Yes, we're going to be handling the closing song a little differently than usual, because this is a song I think probably none of us, or at least the majority of us, are not familiar with. And it is the same 2 verses repeated 3 times. I will sing the first verse on my own, so all of you get to hear it and hear what to sing. And then I will signal for you all to come in, and we will all sing together as a community. So. shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. And it is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. Everybody now. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. And it is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. And it is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love.
Let us go out now with these words inspired from Theodore Parker, one of our great Unitarian Universalist leaders. Let us be a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, words and works of love, its profession of faith, divine living. So blessed be and go in peace. Thank you all for being here today.